Well, you're all very welcome to another episode of the Business of E-commerce. And as always, I have the man himself, John Leach, with me. How are you today, John?
Morning, Brendan. Yeah, very good.
Good.
Looking forward to another good conversation this morning.
Yeah, we've got a very interesting topic today that really looking at e-commerce as almost digital transformation and how people can seamlessly match up point of sale with inventory and the rest of that. Now, we'll be talking about that, just you and I, in a few minutes. But as always, we have a very interesting panel of guests as well. And I'm delighted to welcome Geraldine Kennedy. She's the owner of Jerros. How are you, Geraldine?
Thanks, Brendan. I'm glad to be here.
Good. Looking forward to chatting to you. And Marc O'Donnell, who's the e-commerce manager at Dubarry of Ireland. How are you, Marc?
Oh, good, Brendan. Nice to be here.
Good. And joining us on audio is Andres Nagashiro. He's the e-commerce and operations manager at Arckit. How are things, Andres?
All good. Glad to be here.
Good. So listen, let's start with that conversation that we were talking about at the top of the show there, John. Seamless integration. Tell us about the challenges that people have with matching up point of sale and inventory, and how should people look at that?
Well, I think it was interesting, Brendan, listening to some of our last conversations, particularly with department stores or retailers that had a large inventory, etc. And they were talking about having to have made several attempts to get their e-commerce store actually online. And one of the biggest challenges was getting their e-commerce store integrated, if you like, with their point of sale system or indeed their inventory. And and that is it's certainly not a trivial challenge by any stretch of the imagination. But I think it's also a point that a lot of operators can miss. That starting an e-commerce site is more than just building a website and hoping people come and buy, right? We all wish that would work, but it simply doesn't. So it really is about transforming your business. It's a digital transformation of your business. And that's a topic that, techies and everybody else have been talking about for maybe 30 years plus. And I think the simple bottom line is that as this develops, people who interact with your business digitally or online are actually more demanding in many ways than they are. In my sense is they're more demanding than when they meet you in real life. You'll forgive a lot of things in person that you don't necessarily forgive online. It's just one of those weird approaches or the psychology of it, like that we have to deal with. So they really expect you, to know them and to interact them with it in a seamless way. So all of your systems have to be connected. They have to operate in a customer first mentality. And it's not just the tools and integrations, but it's actually all about having the right business processes and understanding your business processes and simplifying them where possible to make them so that they can scale, and more importantly, that they're reliable. So I think that's what a lot of successful operators have been very good at is understanding those processes, making compromises to make them work for the customer on the front. And that might be more difficult for the business, but you're always putting the customer first and making every customer touch point as smooth and as easy for the customer, not the business. Like sometimes business say, well, we need the customer to do this because that makes it easy for us to do this. Well, that's the wrong way to think about it. It has to be the thing that makes it easy for the customer. So yeah, I mean, you have to have your inventory connected because, you don't want to be getting delayed orders or even worse orders that you can't fulfill. While I always say to people, you have to offer a guest checkout because, people don't always want to sign up for your, for an ID on your system, and that causes a big dropout and shop out in checkout. But equally, you have to give them the option to store that information, because if they're repeat customers that are coming back to you, they don't want to be keying in that information every time. I mean, one-click ordering was one of the key breakout things that Amazon did early on in terms of making their service, the Goliath that it is now. And then customer service. I mean, they have to be available. You have to be available, where the customer wants you to be, like whether that's email, phone, or instant messaging. But they also have to have the complete history in front of them once they're talking to you. so they can help you, the customer, in the most efficient way. Like, I always hate having to input my credit card number when you're talking to your bank, or my account number when you're talking to your phone company. And then when you do get connected to an agent, what's the first thing they ask? Your credit card number or your account number. Say, why the bloody hell have I just spent time keying it in? Like, it's really, really irritating. And I suppose for smaller operators with small teams, or sometimes it's one or two people, that silo mentality is less difficult. But I think if you can track your information in one system, have it available, then it makes the whole thing a lot more easy to be successful with it. And then you can extend that with your loyalty scheme, because that's important to rewarding your best customers. And it also gives, I always think about it, when you're asking the customer to give you something, you have to give something in return. So they're giving you data, they're giving you information, you have to give them value. You have to give them a premier experience. You have to give them, maybe it's a discount. It's those sort of things that really value those long-term customers. So I think the point is that you have to think of your e-commerce ecosystem as your business ecosystem. They're one and the same.
Yeah.
And that's where your value, your difference will be. It'll be in all of that information you've collected about your customers and how you use that to service those customers in the best way possible. Like, don't leave them hanging, just like you wouldn't ignore a customer that's looking a bit lost and forlorn in your shop. You're always going to want to connect with those, make sure you understand what they're looking for, how you can help them. And to do that, everything has to be sort of connected and talking to each other.
Okay. I'll ask my panelists now to please remind me never to ask John Leach for his credit card numbers or anything like that, and get him annoyed. This is.
Oh, yeah.
But no, I get it. Definitely, that is annoying.
You can ask it once, but don't ask me twice in the same conversation. Right? I think that's the point, right?
Absolutely. Listen, let's go to our panel, and to Geraldine Kennedy first. You're the owner, Geraldine, of Jerros boutique in Birr County, beautiful Birr County, Offaly, and it's a great site, great e-commerce site as well. But tell us about your journey into business, first of all, and then your journey into e-commerce, really, and that.
Thanks, Brendan. We started off with a shop on the main street in Birr. We're there since 1998, and we probably originally made the mistake. We bought a property that needed to be renovated, so we kind of had a huge learning curve for several years trying to get things up to scratch and have a nice shop for people to come visit. And then we nosedived into recession back in 2008, seems a long time ago now. And we had to find a new way of trying to just do business, because we would have done a lot of items for weddings. People would have come to us to buy clothing for different, like, big events. And then we, had a look at what we were doing, changed everything around. And now we're probably more of a, if you're going out to a party or you're going to dinner or you're going to a function type of shop. So you can easily come in and buy an outfit from us for €100. And we just got that kind of off the ground and up and running when COVID hit. Yeah. And I have to admit, it took me a couple of months. I know some of the smaller retailers did jump on the bandwagon straight away, but I have 2 small kids. I had 3 employees. Where am I going to find the money for them? And thankfully, the government did step in and took over paying their wages, because that was my biggest worry at the time. And then the second thing is the mortgage. I mean, the banks weren't ringing me to say, give us a shout when all this is over, Ger, and you can pay us back then. So I was lucky my husband continued to work through COVID. And it probably took me till about May to get my head kind of out of the clouds and say, look, I have a shop full of stock and I need to do something to try and start generating it. And a few years before, the Enterprise Board had done a few courses. So I have actually created that website myself. So I've come from like a business background, and I've had to, I have originally done IT. So I had to look at the website, redesign it so that people could actually buy things on it. And you were talking about the stock issue, John, like that's a huge issue for a small business because we don't have the money to have an automated system. So my staff send me a list at the end of the day of what's been sold in the shop. So there will be a few hours of a discrepancy. Now, luckily, what we sell, most people are probably going on in the evening to buy. So by the time they log on to buy something, I will have the stock updated. And then, I've started off, I did a stock take, updated my website. Enterprise Board have been brilliant and doing loads of courses for us. It's not something you think in the retail world that they're available to you, but they are really good. And started selling online, started having to do my own videos because I had no staff. And just went from there and we've built it up over the last 12 months. And now it is a big part of our business. And I suppose coming from a small rural town, the good thing for us is that if it's a bad day outside, people will probably go online and have a look at what we've got. And so we're getting, coming in the morning to orders that we can send out, and that's helping to pay. I have my staff back, but I have them back on a part-time basis. So it's helping us to keep, up and running and going. And it's a new market for us, definitely, which is brilliant.
Brilliant. It's amazing how, John, we hear so many stories of resilience and pivoting or pushing themselves, businesses pushing themselves through crisis times and coming out better for it. And Jerros, that sounds to me like the exact same thing, the resilience of a small business.
Yeah, but look, I suppose I'm lucky. I came from a family of 5. Farming is what my parents would do, and they're not ones to give up. So, they'd always be saying to you, look, you've fallen down, like, what are you going to do to get started again, or how are you going to fix this? And it's always, I suppose, been in the genes that you have to find some way to pick yourself up and dust yourself off and get going again. So I suppose coming out of this, like, I do have 2 children, so it's allowed me now to spend more time at home and do more of the marketing. I'm doing a marketing course with the Enterprise Board at the minute. So it means I can, take a step back from doing the day-to-day business and take a look at the overall business and try and grow it. And, hopefully my part-time staff will become permanent staff again in the future. So.
And maybe
it is really, it's a question of doing what you have to do, and equally, you've certainly done a fine job in terms of how the store looks, etc. And the clothing business, I'm sure Marc will agree, it's and fashion. It is a challenging space at the best of times, and it has its own challenges online, particularly with returns and things. Like that, depending on your audience. So it's not, it's there's a lot of things you have to get right, but it is a question of rolling up your sleeves, getting stuck in, and taking on the challenges, straight up.
And John, I like there's something else to learn from Geraldine's journey, and that's to avail of the courses that are there from the likes of the Enterprise Board and really use them, and the help that's there and the assistance that's there for stuff like that. So that's great. So that really good story from a small business in Ireland. Let's look at a very big business and one of maybe Ireland's, I would say, most popular fashion brands, and that's Dubarry shoes. Marc O'Donnell, Dubarry, tell us about Dubarry shoes and put the business in context for us.
Well, yeah, I've only been with Dubarry for 3 years, but I spent enough time with the marketing director that I think I can deliver the kind of longer term brand story. So they've been in operation since 1937. It was set up by local enterprise board initially in Ballinsloe as a jobs creation device. Basically set up a shoe factory. They were for a long time manufacturing shoes there, and think in the late 80s, early 90s, they started to more, I'm not sure when the brand actually started, but they started to be more active in pursuing their own brand from around that time, and they had their own designs then, and they were selling as Dubarry shoes. And during the 90s, they developed, first thing actually, they were into sailing boots because they had been making these sailing boots for a Danish company, and the company went under and there was still a demand for these boots. They had all the lasts and the designs and everything, and they started making these sailing boots, but their design team kind of kicked on from that, and they were the first ones to go out, and from making these leather sailing boots, they reached out to Gore-Tex, which is like the lightweight, breathable, waterproof kind of devices fabric as it was at the time. And so they had then this leather Gore-Tex lined boot, and that was a massive innovation for specifically for that area. And like it's kind of tied in with that the deck shoes that we'd all know that people be wearing to school or wearing around the place, but it's kind of tied in. They're actually very technical shoe in terms of you could actually wear them out sailing, and they're the non-slip kind of what would you call them, the indentations. It's like a car tire, like where they have the specific pattern underneath so that they won't slip on a wet kind of slippery surface.
Yes.
But then you had the sailing boots, and they developed then the kind of the Galway boot, which internationally would be our foremost product that would sell outside of Ireland. And it's basically a similar design to what was the sailing boot, but with the kind of cleats for outdoor wear, so for wearing in the field. And then everything that came after that with the clothing lines and jackets and kind of wider range of boots, we hit a sweet spot where we finally figured out where they were going to sell that Galway boot, and it was kind of a country and outdoor audience. And then kind of built the clothing range around that. That's why there's a lot of like this kind of tweed and like wax jackets and that kind of outdoor functional slow fashion. Like it's definitely the biggest thing about our clothing as well as our footwear is that from one year to the next, anything that works, it doesn't change from year to year. That we're not like, you know, trying to keep up with catwalk fashion or any of that. It's about making really solid stuff that's functional as well as, you know, having nice lines and being relatively stylish.
It's probably right on trend then right now at the moment then in terms of, as you mentioned, the slow fashion. I'm not a fashion expert, but it sounds like it's right on trend now.
I have talked about quite a bit, because in terms of the materials used, it's not like it's recycled plastics or that kind of end of it, but like we need to do some studies and get some data behind it of what the environmental impact is of having like a pair of shoes that you can wear for 3 or 4 years as opposed to having to have the new ones every year. And there is really a genuine value to that. And that's where we justify our price point. It's where we always have justified the price point for that, for the collection, and it is value because it lasts. And then from the an environmental standpoint as well, that's also true.
And do you incorporate that then into your e-commerce messaging particularly? I mean, obviously it's the e-commerce has a reach well and beyond Ireland, obviously, in terms of into Europe, etc. So does that feed into how we approach it?
We haven't quite figured out what the right tone is for that yet. That like it is something that we've been talking about, but apart from some of the easier stuff where we have polo shirts that are made from bamboo and different fabrics like that, where it's very easy to show how they're sustainable. It's we haven't got enough kind of data behind it to say this is why it's sustainable, even though we do know that there's a story there to tell. So it's something we will incorporate into our message once we figure out how to do it right. Because it's like everything else, we kind of It's been a conversation that's gone on for a while, but you don't want to go out with it until you have it right. And then, same as everyone else with the positives and the negatives, we've had the massive kind of focus on the changing landscape due to COVID over the last year and a half, where it's just more than anything else, there's been constant change. That like the first couple of months of COVID and everyone was trying to figure it out, and that changed the kind of the footing of the business. Stores were closed. Some of our retailers were ordering more stuff because they were selling so well online. Some of them weren't ordering at all. And then just the messaging and even the marketing message to try and figure out like how is our product range actually relevant during COVID times. And luckily, especially in our international markets, there was a big push from people, same as in Ireland, going from the cities to more of an outdoor lifestyle, and just the practical, there was a huge upsurge in demand for boots because they were the right product for actually being out in that space on a casual basis, being out walking, whether with dogs or
and would you have seen a shift? I guess you probably did, in terms of to the direct to consumer element of the Dubarry. Like it's a multi-channel business. Obviously, you have retailers who, and that's always going to be part of the mix. So has the brand store, the online brand store, direct consumer, then increased as part of that equation?
What would have really changed is, well, the other thing, like talking about integrations and that, and it was actually really nice to hear the way Geraldine does it, like that not everyone needs a real-time stock position from their website. That, like, sometimes the sensible option, if you're doing a volume in the store during the day and it's however many, like if you sit down for a half an hour and key in the correct stock levels at the end of the day, you're going to save yourself a lot of money in building an integration. And sometimes that is the sensible way to do it.
Yeah.
And for our integrations, we made a big investment in the e-commerce business in 2019, where I started 3 years ago. And at that point, the marketing director and managing director in Dubarry had decided that they wanted to invest more in what was a significant e-commerce business, but they wanted to take it on to the next steps and to kind of accelerate the growth. So timing wise, we were actually quite lucky that we did a big re-platform project at the end of 2019. We had everything ready to go live and ready for growth in 2020. So with a lot of trying to get things right for the marketing message for COVID, but technically our systems were kind of ready to go. And we had moved from a space where we had like almost separate websites for each of our markets that had grown up over time. Now we still like support multiple languages and support 4 different inventory locations between Netherlands, the US, the UK and Ireland, but they're all under the one tech stack now, and it's all in one place, and it just makes it work a lot more smoothly. And
that's really important. And generally speaking, it's really important to support multi-language because, particularly in Europe, even though English is very common and popular and all the rest of it, like I haven't seen any really successful brand that's sold into Germany or Netherlands without actually, taking the time and effort. And it's almost showing that respect and interest in the consumer in that market to make sure you're in their language and talking the language that they expect. So that's always been important. I think, and will continue to be.
Yeah, and
for sure.
And with that, like we've ended up in a place where this year, like this 12 months when it ends, we'll be doing about 2.5 times online what we were doing in 2019, which is significant growth by any stretch, and obviously largely down to COVID. And that's kind of more than made up for what we would have lost through the stores we've only 3 stores that are our own, and then the kind of out store as well in Ballinsloe. And then as well as that, it would have made up for what we'd lost through the events, which has always been a really significant channel for us, because in the in the 90s, where Dubarry actually found their customer set was by attending these kind of country events, especially in the UK, like the badminton horse trials and Burley horse trials, and kind of around like 3-day event, and just that kind of outdoorsy kind of audience was our sweet spot. And we'd have very good brand recognition within that audience, but in a wider market in the UK, most people would never have heard of us. And then when our events are going to be back up and running now this year, but it was good like that the website was able to kind of make up for what we would have lost as a sales channel. The one thing I'm really keen on that is that it has always been and continues to be really important for our brand awareness in all of those markets. Like our biggest tool for brand awareness is actually those key events that we're attending in the international markets, especially in Germany and the US. And what we've seen is a really strong correlation between where we've been able to build our web business and where we've had success on the event circuit.
Yeah, I think brand aware. I mean, from an e-commerce P&L owner perspective, you tend to be very focused on conversions and transactions and the immediate response when you put a campaign in market. But underlying all of that is your brand awareness. It's people searching for your brand. They're always the campaigns are going to convert and perform better, and they're going to subsidize all the other tactics. So it's important to get that balance right between those two.
We'd be like, obviously, when you talk about paid search, and we spoke about it on the phone earlier, and it's the expression you used, but there's some of these things like the platform. But I think for like paid search, you're paying your rent. Like you're paying your rent for your storefront in Google through your paid search. And that's fine when people are searching for Dubarry, and our ROAS is obviously very strong on that. Like be looking at better numbers than I'd seen kind of anywhere else, where it was like 20 to 30 to 1 plus, because there are people that are looking for Dubarry and we're there. But there's a ceiling on that because there's only so many people that are searching for that.
Yeah.
So like 90% of everything else that we do is all about how can we get more people to search for Dubarry, and how do we like increase the number of impressions for that Dubarry search term.
Yeah.
And you see like everything coming through there, even like when you send out an email, and you'll see like bumps in your organic search traffic in those couple of hours, because it's not just the people that click through. Like people will get the email and they go on another device and type it in, and as often as they'll do www.dubarry.com, they'll actually get a Google search result page.
Yeah.
And it's kind of around building that brand awareness, and like for a rough yardstick like that, number of the amount of impressions on Google search would be a good measure for me of brand awareness. And
yeah, particularly for the core terms. Yeah, true.
Great. Listen, let's go from Dubarry, which is a well-established brand in fashion, to a very interesting website in especially for children and education. Andres of Arckit. Can you tell us a little bit about Arckit and what Arckit does and how it came about?
Sure. So the company has been in business for about 6 to 7 years ago. We sell architectural model kits. So if you want to call it a little bit like an upgrade Lego system. And again, the focus of these kits would be, of course, they cater for a lot of target audiences as well. But the main focus would be around the STEAM or STEM model, if you want to call it that way. And again, it's trying to. I think the company motto at the moment would be to teach architecture through playing, basically. Again, I've been in the company for about 5 to 6 months. The company again it tries to promote as well a production line entirely taking place in Ireland, so a made in Ireland product. And again, over the past 6 to 7 years, the company has been selling in some brick and mortar locations across the US. the UK, Japan, and Northern Europe, so Scandinavia particularly. But I suppose most of our business at the moment is online. So again, we have a warehouse in City West, so in West Dublin in Ireland, and we have another warehouse in New Jersey. Because again, of course, our focus market, and again, for most Irish businesses online at the moment, would be the United States. So the United States account for about 70 to 80% of what we sell. But again, it's a product made in Ireland, especially dedicated to education and architectural education particularly. And it's kind of eyeing towards exporting that idea overseas, basically.
Okay, great. And over the last, how long did you say you're with the company yourself, Andres?
I haven't been in the company for about 5 months. Before that, I transitioned from Pet Supplies, actually, from an American company that would have an European headquarters in County Louth. So again, over the past 18 months, I suppose I've seen e-commerce kind of transitioning entirely, say is, since the pandemic started. So the COVID shaped basically how what products were actually purchased online. So again, COVID shaped which products had priority for shipping. So again, last year, if I was working with Pet Supplies were deemed an important consumer good, because it was a bit like
food for the humans, never mind the pets. Yeah.
Absolutely. So again, with that, we saw a massive increase in online sales. Say, our growth year on year would have been instead of the usual 18% would have been 38%, which again, accounted for a nice little bonus for everyone. But again, it's kind of see how that the pandemic really shaped what customers were purchasing. So in what I can see now from the other side to say educational toys is that the new consumer behavior seems to be more focused now in relation to trends. And again, these trends, I suppose, when you had brick and mortar pre-pandemic, you did have the ease of people actually walking into your store and kind of browsing and then actually making a purchase. Whereas now we can see, and I'm tagging along with what has been said here already, it's just that people seem to be more search focused at the moment. So they log onto a website and they already have an idea of what they're looking for.
And in terms of the audience, like they're really fascinating models and very detailed and all the rest of Andreas when I was looking at them. And is the audience the parents of kids? I mean, is it that young? Is it a younger age group, or is it sort of students at a slightly older age, or what's the real audience, and how do you find that audience online?
We actually have different lines, and again, it was trying to find that niche in between having something that could be used for adults and children alike. So we have a product line say that it's it would have more colors and in line with what STEAM adheres to, and that would be catered for either education and children from the age of 5 until the age of 8. And then we have lines that are a bit more advanced that would cater from 8 to 10, 10 to 14, and 14 onwards. And again, the 14 onwards would be kits that would have nearly 1,000 pieces. And then another thing the company does, and they've done very well, is that all kits are built on the same scale. So that means that you can mix and match if you want. So a kit that would cater for STEAM or for education could also cater for someone for an adult actually using it. So it's kind of trying to integrate, I suppose, both aspects of it. So adults and children playing alike, and then kind of bridging that gap especially now that people with COVID, people found themselves a bit more at home, and they kind of wanted to interact with their children a little bit more.
And do something physical rather than being stuck on the phones and tablets and all the other things that we get stuck in. So I suppose you've got kids, you've got parents, you've got teachers, you've got a couple of different segments that you need to reach out to and connect with, right?
Yes, and another one that we seem to have done very well. It's actually museums. So usually we get orders from museums, particularly in the United States. And again, it would be people that already have that sort of focus in architecture, and they want to explore a little bit more when they're at home.
Right. So that'll be so that's actually like the museum stores or wherever that's always part of that visitor experience, that they can pick up obviously a kit or a model at the end. That's really interesting.
And ask a question. Just
go Mark.
Yeah, just because I've been looking on your site there. It's really nice, Andres, and stuff looks really cool. And there's stadiums you do there. Do you do like actual like football stadiums, and do you match to real ones, or is it just like the one stadium model you have?
It sounds like you've got a new customer here, Andres.
My wife is pregnant upstairs, and I like my child is definitely going to be playing with these at some stage.
Yeah.
That's interesting, because I suppose the stadium would have been. We have two versions of stadiums at the moment, so they would have been envisioned to cater. Again, one of them would be for more like an arena, so team sports, and the other one would be for individual sports. And again, it's a bit of more of a generic design, but I think what the company has really stressed on is kind of trying to customize that a little bit. So again, each stadium and each kit actually would have a particular set of say, we want to call it accessories. So they're cardboard accessories or they're stickers as well. So again, you're just trying to customize that a little bit. So I suppose, with the kits, it's not just about building the kit, it's actually trying to build a story. I know growing up when I was a child and had Lego in my hands, it wasn't just about building the Lego. It was actually about playing with it and having a story behind it. So again, for the stadiums, if you look at the arena, for example, you have stickers related to basketball and hockey and American football, for example, whereas the stadium itself would have more accessories related to individual sports, like track and field and so on.
Yeah, I think Mark has put his finger on some. Anybody with kids who will come across your site, Arckit, will be fascinated by it. And Andres, this is a wholly Irish company, is it? I know you said you've also a warehouse in New Jersey, but it is an Irish company as such, is it?
Yes. So we're based down in South Dublin, and the entire team is actually here. So again, we have production lines in County Wicklow and in City West, particularly for fulfillment as well. But the whole operation centered in the Republic of Ireland, and then we ship from here. So only last week, actually, we shipped a big container of our new line to New Jersey. So that's going to take a few weeks to reach there. But again, I think even in the packaging, we pride ourselves of being an Irish company and a product being entirely made in Ireland.
Okay, great.
Can I ask another question, because I'm fascinated?
Yes.
And it's kind of repeating John's question earlier of like, how do you find new customers? How do you get in front of that target audience? Like, what are your key channels for marketing this stuff? Because I'm kind of like Brendan said, if you see it, it does look good, and I'm kind of inclined, like I'd love to buy it. But how do you encourage people to visit the site, or how do you get that first view of a customer? Is it through bricks and mortar, or is there something online around that?
I think over time the company has been I think kind of like you have, Marc. like a company has done as well. Like we have been part of trade fairs as well. So there's a toy fair in New York that the company would have been part of pre-COVID. We have a toy fair in Nuremberg as well in Germany. The company would be attending. A lot of it would have been as far as actually reaching out. So say we sell in Harrods in the UK, and it would have been about approaching them, and again, I suppose kind of trying to find that that niche market. And again, it is a bit of a niche product. So again, doing a little bit of market research, you can find that let's say some countries would be more prone to purchase this product than others. So again, we're kind of big in Scandinavia, for example, in which you have this sort of a clean cut architecture as well. Japan's a big market for us as well. So again, I think at the beginning of it, it would have been part of that sort of toy fair, part of business. But now, because we built that sort of a client base, a lot we do get approached from a word of mouth kind of perspective at the moment, and say with a lot of particularly with a lot of originating from Amazon as well.
I would guess or think, like, in terms of strategy going forward, in terms of you have to be really focused on your targeting, because it is such a niche product. But then if you get your targeting right, Andreas, I guess then the returns from that will be good. And then it's probably got to have an element of integrating, if I buy the physical product in a physical store, how can I connect then to the online experience and bring that customer, to that online experience, to enhance it, to, the add-ons, to make them a customer for life, not just for the one museum visit that they made. I suspect those types of strategies are what's going to have to be part of growing that online business.
Yeah, we have been drawing a new strategy around that, actually, especially as we've launched a new product. So if you go on our website, for example, you can see that you can still download new textures, for example. So if you want to keep building that story further, you can do so. And again, everything's fully compatible with all the kits we have. Again, we have established a bit of a cadence for a newsletter and social media channels as well, in which we have started to promote our products, our new lines, like running a few contests as well. And again, I'm kind of tagging along on what you said earlier as well. It's kind of like trying to automate our customer journey as much as we can, but provide a dedicated customer channel for customer service. So something a bit more customized, in which customers, for example, have been coming back to us and say, oh, I've been trying to assemble this kit, but I want a better idea on how to do it. And we actually had people in our team sending them screenshots of what's the best way. So again, it's kind of trying to manage that expectation a little bit on the customer service side of it. But again, when on the purchasing side, so on the website particularly, try to automate it and make it as simple as we can. So you can see on our website as well, like the website is mostly white. It's just as clean as possible, because again, that kind of helps us outline the product itself rather than just the website.
Yeah, and I think like the thing that makes some of these offerings really successful is it's not just a physical product, but it's what you can wrap around them. So even like you obviously had an intro into STEM and learning and teaching architectural skills, if you like. So I'd be thinking that there's got to be an opportunity for a really good YouTube channel, here where the customer service team are actually building the models, showing the expansions, all of that sort of stuff. And I think your audience would engage with that, I would suspect. And that's a really good way of building out your community. So rather than even on helping, by helping one individual customer, you can share that and then help your whole community. And that's the way to get leverage out of that content and to make it work for you really hard.
John, John, just to wrap up or summarize, if you like, between all, you work, John, closely as an advisor for large businesses in terms of e-commerce, but you also work for you advise smaller types of businesses in terms of strategy and that. It occurs to me that let's say from Geraldine through to Marc, through to Andres, a lot of it is the same challenges, no matter what the size. Would you agree with that?
I think that it's the same principles and probably you're right, the same challenges. And I love the fact we started talking with Geraldine, today, it was very much, there were things that had to be done manually. And you know what? That's the right place to start. If you can get the process working manually, that's probably more, you learn more by doing that in the initial phases. And it gives you something then you can possibly automate sometime in the future when it scales to a level where manual becomes difficult. I think, Geraldine, you took absolutely the right approach. Say, let's not worry about doing something really sophisticated or complicated here. The end result is we have to have the inventory right. We're going to upload it manually every day, and that's the task, but at least it can be done. And then even using video and that sort of stuff together, again, the authenticity of that, you're the face of the brand, you're part of the brand. It's what people, when they walk into your store, I guess, on the main street there in Birr, they're buying from you rather than, something else. So by integrating that into your e-com store, that absolutely will help drive success. So I think that there's the element of, starting with the challenge, fixing it and moving it forward from there. Likewise with Dubarry, I think they have the benefit, I guess, Marc, you have the benefit of having like a strong brand, and it's about continuing to develop that and spreading that out and then piggybacking on that brand recognition so that it makes all of the e-commerce P&L function in a way that is profitable and helps drive the thing forward. But again, it's all about now you have 4 warehouses to manage. It's the same challenge, just on a different scale, and therefore getting that investment ahead of time in the infrastructure like you did and like you described, that gives you the really good basis then to scale going forward. And then, Andres, I think it's the same sort of challenge as we struggle a little bit with obviously those trade shows, those events, over the last 18 months, and people are trying to do virtual versions, and that sort of is a decent substitute, but it's still a substitute. I think it's about, using or creating the digital version of that content that you can then spread and use and use it to engage with the community. So it's the process of business and people buying from people and trusting who they're working with, etc. It's the same whether you're small or big, Brendan. It's maybe as you get bigger, you have to find different ways of solving the same problem or scaling that solution. But at the end of the day, you still have to find a solution to those basic business, challenges that
Well, John, the problem I have to solve now is that we've run out of time, and we've had a fantastic conversation again today with great businesses. So I really want to thank everybody who's participated today, and wish you all the very, very best with your businesses. And I hope our listeners will glean something of value from the challenges and how each business has risen to them, and also a great byproduct of this that we become aware of new businesses and new offerings. So Geraldine Kennedy, owner of Jerros Boutique, and that's Jerros for anybody that wants to line up and have a look at it. To Marc O'Donnell, who is the e-commerce manager at Dubarry of Ireland. Andres Nagashiro, the e-commerce and operations manager at Arckit, and to you, John Leach, the wise old sage of e-commerce advice. I'd like to say thank you all very much, and we'll talk to you all again.